Welcome to Empty Nesters and Beyond here on TorahFamily.org. You're on with the three wise guys.
We're glad to be with you guys, and we love using this thing that's called the Bible. It's something that is really well read, and people are looking for truth in today's society. And I think the Bible expresses itself as truth, as a witness, as the Word. So this is our foundational belief. This is what we're going to use.
And do you guys realize that 3.9 billion Bibles have been sold the last 50 years? Amazing.
3.9 B is billion, not million.
Billion. I mean,
oh my gosh.
many hundreds of times more than any other book. So do you think it's important, this Bible, this guidebook to the kingdom? I know it is, and we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, I think it gives us a picture that people are really trying to find truth. And we want to try to do that for you today. We're going to look for truth. We're going to try to find some answers on this thing that's called widowhood. What do you do when you're alone? What do you do when you're by yourself? You found yourself without a spouse or without a loved one, and you're all by yourself. Forgive us if we use a little bit of humor at times.
We do that.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for us.
Yeah. When we say the wise guys, we don't really mean like we're really wise. We're trying to get wise. And that's why we have these conversations.
Yeah.
So we're going to entitle this Alone in the Nest. It may be part of many parts of a teaching, a conversation on what happens when you lose your spouse, the other person that's been so a part of you for so long.
Well, and we're not saying that unless that we know, because we don't, unless you go through this difficult time, probably the most difficult time, those of you that have been widowed or even divorced, separated, how difficult that is. Until you walk that journey, we really don't know what that really entails.
I was looking this up, you guys, the other day, and I wanted to know, how big is this widow thing? I mean, is it large? Is it small? And I found out that in the last year or so, every year there's going to be about 800,000 people that are widowed.
Every year. Newly widowed.
Wow.
And out of the 800,000 people, 700,000 of those that are widowed, that are left by themselves, are women. That means a lot of us, we die.
We're going to be here.
And most of the time, the men are the breadwinners. So the ladies are left really with not enough.
Yeah.
To sustain their lifestyle.
Yeah, I found this out from the U.S. Bureau of Census, that we have...
Did you say senseless?
Census.
Census. Okay, just check it. Census. Sometimes the numbers that come out are a little senseless.
But we find out that from all the people that die, it would average, of all the people that are widowed, it would average out to almost 40 people in every church or fellowship. There's going to be 40 people in every church or fellowship that's actually widowed. And those people that are widowed, they lose about 75% of their support base when this happens.
Yeah.
Okay? That means not only financially, but in friendship-wise and all those sorts of things that happen. So this is really an important topic. This affects all of us. And we need to kind of wrap our minds around for it, look for some answers. What does the Bible have to say about this? How can we learn to treat one another? What can we do to make this relevant? So maybe we ought to first take a look at the word widow. What does that mean? What does widow mean? If we can start there, from a Hebrew perspective.
Well, why would you want to start with a Hebrew perspective? What's that all about?
Well, the Bible here, was first written in Hebrew.
No. It wasn't written in English?
Yes.
Damn. Now I'm going to be really confused.
So it's good to go back to the original.
I think so. At least find out what the word might mean. It might give us a picture of how we need to approach this. You want to try it?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the Hebrew, if you go to the Strong's number 490, you end up with Almana. Almana. This is in the English, of course. Almanah.
Almana?
M-O-U-S. Alman, it comes from 488. But it means a desolate house or forsaken or bound in grief.
So So those of you that have been widowed, forsaken, wow, that's intense, isn't it? I mean, that is not an easy life to walk, is it?
No, it really isn't. And as you're turning there, if I could briefly go there, in order to understand separateness, we really have to understand what oneness is. And just to touch briefly, if we go to Bereshit or Genesis, chapter 2, we're going to go just jump right into 22 and 23 verses. So Genesis 2, 22 and 23. And the rib which Yahweh Elohim had taken from the man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And the man said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman because she was taken out of man. I mean, look at the picture that conjures up. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. You are as one as two separate entities can possibly become. That's the intent.
So, why did Yahweh make that, though? I mean, when you think, go back further. This is something we do all the time, you guys, with the wise guys. We start to read something and then we go, wow.
We're distractible. Squirrel.
But if I go back to verse 18, then the Lord God, Yahweh said, it's not good for man to be alone. I'll make him a helper suitable for him. So desolate house could be something that maybe is lonely. Could I say that?
When half of us have been taken off, there's going to be a huge wound there, isn't there? There's going to be, and it's going to be terrible at times, I would only imagine.
Now, for the person that's left, they've graduated. That gets a lot easier. For the people that are left, oh my goodness.
The person that goes,
How do I operate?
So
I'm all by myself.
One step
all by myself. Oh, man, we can't quit our day jobs.
No, don't worry, we won't.
We don't mean to make light of that.
No.
But the thing is that if you're by yourself, it can feel desolate. It can feel like, what good am I without this other partner, this helper that's been with me?
Well, and we know that the word says he'll never leave. He is always there. But I know sometimes we don't feel it, do we?
Sure. You know, when we get married, remember the vows most people go through? It's like this 3-strand cord.
Yes.
That scripture?
It's not easily broken.
Okay, so one of the strands of that cord has frayed and is now graduated. It's gone beyond.
It's gone.
Yahweh doesn't change. The Creator's still there. And sometimes it's hard to see that in the grief.
Well, in this, we say, we only can imagine. We all have, you've had your mother. I've had my father that was left. It seems like it just it would be terrible.
Since we do know that it could be terrible, let's take the first aspect of this.
Okay.
Say you or I belong to a fellowship, or a church, and the church or the people around us should probably know that this is something that happened to you awful. How are we to treat the widow? So we first define the widow. Let's go, and we know that it could be desolate. We know that it can be lonely.
That it will be.
And it will be. So then we need to ask ourselves, if I see this happen, if I'm a part of this, and knowing that this person has lost 75% of its support base, and knowing that that happens a lot, how should I think about the widow? How should I look at it? Maybe we can find that out in some questions. Let's look at Matthew 23:14.
23:14.
Let's look at that.
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. Am I on the right one? Hypocrites. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Because you eat up widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers. Because of this you shall receive greater judgment.
Wow. So I shouldn't maybe take advantage of the widow.
Absolutely not. We should nurture that widow. We should just come alongside her and find out what she needs. You know, she doesn't have the man to take care of the vehicles anymore. She doesn't have the man to do all those little handyman things that she had. And boy, I can only imagine the frustration that she must go through. Each and every these little things that she never even had to think about now are becoming huge because she doesn't know.
But what about men too? I mean, if a man loses his wife, how he's going to be feeling?
Well, a man, it's going to be tough too. I only could go by my dad, and he'd say he'd go into the kitchen, and he would just, because my mom did the cooking, he would just feel sick to my stomach. Fixed it. sick to his stomach when he thought about what kind of meal was he going to prepare.
There's another stat from the University of Glasgow. Within the first 3 to 6 months. Glasgow.
Oh, we going to Glasgow?
Yes. 30% of the people that lose a spouse, 30% will pass away within the next 3 to 6 months because they're that connected.
Die of a broken heart.
Died of a broken heart.
Yeah, I believe that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You brought up something I think, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you go ahead.
But, your dad said, okay, he would just like be sick to his stomach and he couldn't, his wife, your mother, did the cooking.
Yes.
Look at the different functions that we carry. And the example I have is not from widows, but my daughters who came up to go camping this last weekend. And their husbands couldn't make it because of work and some other things going on. So they came up and I heard them more than once say, oh, well, he always brings this. He always sets this thing up. Just like your dad's talking about the cooking, there are ways that we complement each other the way that the Creator's made us, that part's gone too. So that functionality's lost as well.
So when Yeshua uses those words in Matthew,
woe to you, because you eat up widows' houses.
Wow.
So if I eat up a widow's home or a house, I don't think it just deals physically. I would actually be eating up or zapping them of their spiritual life as well as their physical life. I don't know. Let's look up Exodus 22:23.
Okay.
And I got it right here.
Or 22. Yeah, let's start with 22.
Okay. And you shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. And if you afflict them in any way, and they cry at all to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will become hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. Wow, what a warning to all of us.
Not to afflict,
if you
not to
take advantage of these little ladies or, that have been widowed. Wow. I mean, he says, if they at all cry out to me, I will come after you.
Wow.
Wow, that's a warning, boy. That
There's another one in Deuteronomy 16. Let's look up that one. Deuteronomy 16, 11 to 14. Let's see what we're supposed to do. Kind of like this.
So many, these are the instructions for his people, for the ones that are in this situation. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. I'll back up to 10 because that's what we do is a lot of backup, right? Yeah. Then you shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with a tribute of a freewill offering of your hand, which you shall give just as the Lord your God blesses you. Now it goes on. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your son and your daughter and your male and female servants, and the Levite who's in your town, and the stranger and the orphan and the widow who are in your midst, in the place where the Lord your God chooses to establish his name. What I love about this text is it tells me that I'm not supposed to leave the widow alone. I'm to include them, to bring them into my fellowship, even when I'm celebrating a Sabbath or a feast day or an important time, to be inclusive.
Pick up the phone. Get your wife to pick up the phone and make that call and just say, we've just been thinking about you. It's so important. I think it's more important, you guys, than we could even imagine how they need those calls. They need to know that somebody is
men and women.
Yes.
Remember the little old man. That might be one of us, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but that's right. It could be.
Well, and look what happens. Typically, one of the spouses pass.
Yeah.
And then there's this huge outpouring of
initially
casseroles and grief
in the first week.
Kind of counseling. People do get kind of uncomfortable too, don't they?
Yes.
They don't know what to say. I know how you feel. No, you don't. You've never been through this before.
No, you haven't.
We haven't been through it. We've only looked at it vicariously through our parents.
Yes.
And what they've gone through. So we can't even relate if you're one that has lost your spouse to what you're going through.
No.
And people will say stupid things.
I know.
They will. I know how you feel.
No.
But then after a period of time, call it a week, maybe a month, the casseroles drop off, the invites drop off, people quit showing up, and that can be a very lonely time, I would imagine.
So now what do? Say that you're the widow, and all the sorry letters have stopped, and all the care letters have stopped, and the care food has stopped. And where do you find your strength? Where do you find your encouragement? How do you move forward? How do you maybe forgive your fellowship or church that is no longer thinking about you? Maybe we should talk about that.
That maybe, you may feel forgotten. And boy, that's what we're trying to learn as his people, how to address these difficult times in our people and our fellowships.
Are there answers in this?
Then there's answers here.
Just a few, a zillion.
Yes.
And consider, just like grief, there's a period of time that everybody goes through, and then they get on with their lives.
Right.
But that grief is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
When we were reading about tears and how there's a couple of chemicals that actually relieve pain that occur when you cry.
Yeah.
Now, us guys, we don't cry. We sweat.
I weep sometimes. Not often.
But not often. We tend not to. We tend to be more stoic. And I want to be a man and not cry. But if that helps, then why aren't we doing it?
And it will help.
Let's find out what happens when we cry. You had a text that we looked up before.
Yes.
It's 1 Corinthians 17. No, 1 Kings.
1 Kings.
1 Kings. Okay? I want to find out what happens when we cry. And then there's going to be another text we're going to bring up. That's Luke 7. Okay? So we're going to look at 1 Kings 17.
20.
We go down to 20. And
I'm going to start at 19.
No, really?
I know. Go figure. And he said to her, give me your son. Now, should we set this up ahead of time?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay, so we've got Yehoshua. We've got Joshua there. He has gone to a widow that is got her last little bit of oil and flour, and she and her son are going to consume it, and she says, die. And then he comes along and says, well, no, go ahead and eat it. And then a little while later, the boy dies. Right? So that's where we pick up. And he said to her, give me your son. So he took him from her arms and took him to the upper room where he was dwelling and laid him on his own bed and cried out to Yahweh and said, oh, Yahweh, my Elohim, have you also brought evil on the widow with whom I am sojourning to kill her son? And he stretched himself out on the child 3 times and cried out to Yahweh and said, oh, Yahweh, my Elohim, I pray, let the life of this child come back to him. And Yahweh heard the voice of Eliyahu, and the life of the child came back to him, and he lived. And at the punchline, if you will, and the woman said, this is in verse 24, to Eliyahu, now, by this I know you are a man of Elohim, that your word, the word of Yahweh is in your mouth, and it's truth. Notice that twice, actually there's 3 times in this chapter, where he says the word, who's the word? Well,
he is the word.
Yeshua is the word, is brought to the forefront, and then Eliyahu lays on him 3 times. Yeshua is there in the midst of death. I think that's the point I would like to make out of that.
I want to see how many people are actually crying out, which is what I was hearing. And what I saw, notice that Elijah cries out to Yahweh.
That's right.
Okay? He says this, O Lord my God, hast thou also brought calamity to the widow with whom I'm staying by causing her son to die? Oh my word. I mean, I can see it really upset Elijah. He stretches him out 3 times, calls to him, or in some instances says, cries to him. Oh, Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child's life return to him. And the life of the child returned to him. That to me is amazing.
Yeah.
So I think when we cry out, at least I want to hear. Let's find that out in Luke 7.
Luke 7.
Let's go to Luke 7.
Go for it.
Are you ready? And we're in 11. And it came about soon afterwards. This is Jesus walking down the streets. And he went to a city called Nain. And his disciples were going along with him, accompanied by a large multitude. Now, as he approached the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother. And she was a widow. And a sizable crowd from the city was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her and said to her, do not weep. Now, she must be crying, right?
That's the shortest book in the Bible.
Yeah.
Shortest verse.
and he came up and touched the coffin, and the bearers came to halt, and he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. She's mourning for this death. And Yeshua immediately gives her assurance by putting his hand on her and says, don't cry. Don't weep. Okay, I got this under control.
Yes.
So was she not supposed to grieve?
No.
She wasn't?
No, she is supposed to.
She is supposed to. Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure I understood your...
No, but he's basically saying, I'm in control. I'm going to give you something.
And maybe the time for grief has passed now.
Could have.
Or can you do both this at the same time? Reach for him and reach for him through grief?
Grief is important. I mean, when you think about all the people that died, you think of Joseph and Jacob and all those people that died. I mean, they would many times grieve for days.
Yeah. Oh, 30 days, 40, whatever it was. Long time.
And I just want to stand corrected that he wept was the shortest verse. It just came to my mind. And that was in red, but that's why. But point being, I think grieving, you guys, those trying to withhold those tears, I think that's a detriment. We need to allow our tears to flow when we're going through those. Because I saw my dad, he cried daily, just weeping for my mother of 59 years. And but it's all part of it. He will never leave us nor forsake. He will take us through one step at a time.
So first step.
After
everyone's given you the casseroles and they've all told you that they're sorry.
And they're not there anymore.
After some of the numbness has worn off, right? Can this be? Did this really just happen?
I know. Sometimes you just expect them to come walking through the door. That's what my dad would tell me. I just expect her to come walking in, but she doesn't come. See, but the Father, He knows what you're going through. He gave His Son, and He will take you through this I believe.
So it's okay to cry out.
It's all right. I think we need to cry out. I think we need to tell Him exactly how we feel. And man, wow. So it's a
touching your heart today.
It is, because it's so real. And again, you don't know until you walk it out. But we just, I just think it's so important, though, not to isolate yourself, to get out there with the body, even though you don't feel like it at times.
Let's look up some other texts. Let's go to Psalms 146:9.
146:9.
Yeah. Let's find out what this has to say for the widow. I thought this was an amazing text, and I really like it. It gives a lot of assurance.
That blessed assurance.
Yahweh guards the strangers. He lifts up the fatherless and widow. But the way of the wrong one, He turns upside down.
See, my text says the Yahweh protects the strangers and He supports the fatherless and the widow.
Is that the RSV, the Rollins Standard?
Yeah, no, this is a New American Standard.
Yeah. That was on the scriptures.
Mine relieves the fatherless and the widow. That's a New King James.
So what are you guys taking away from that then?
Well,
either version.
Yeah.
Or all three, what do you take away from the text itself?
Well, He guards. So that Hebrew word is shamar, which is part of the Shema, listen.
Guard to keep.
It's to guard, to keep, to hold. He holds us when we're going through that grief. He's protecting us.
That's assurance.
Blessing.
And He gives relief to the fatherless and the widow. He'll give you relief.
Wow.
And the thing is, you're going to have to cry out to Him. I really believe there's a time to cry out. And boy, if it's not the time when you're lost your other half, boy, there is no other time. So what else do we have, guys?
I want to look at a few other things beside the Psalms. We did, Luke. We got into Kings, and there's this other thing about what do I do when I'm really lonely? I want to marry again. I want to do something like that. I think Paul talks about this. Let's look up Romans 7 and even 1 Corinthians 7 and see what's there.
Romans 7, I got it. 7.
Let's go verses 2 and 3.
Okay, here it goes. Let me start from 1. Well, do you not know, brethren, for I speak to those who know the Torah. For the Torah has dominion over a man as long as he lives. For a woman who has a husband is bound by the Torah to her husband as long as he lives. But if the husband dies, she is released from the Torah of her husband. So then, while her husband lives, she marries another man, she will be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she has married another man. So she is free after she has been widowed to remarry.
A story, and I haven't shared this with you guys yet, but just a few weeks ago, a guy I work with said, my mom came over and she was going to bring a friend to dinner. It's like, okay, going to bring a friend, no big deal. She's in her 80s. I think she's 85 maybe. And she shows up with a guy and announces that they're engaged. And he was just kind of shocked. He hadn't thought about it. His mother hadn't been married for many years. And they'd met through Youth with a Mission over in Europe. And it was very interesting to observe that whole process of him chewing on it, going, wow, my mom's going to get married again. Well, why shouldn't that be? I want her to be happy. Yeah, but she's been this way. And just this turmoil he created in him. Yeah. But yeah, they should get married. They should be happy.
Yeah. My wife works as a massage therapist, and she had this lady that was on the table, and she's an older lady. And she started to cry during the therapy session.
The lady on the table?
The lady on the table, not Angie. But Angie starts wondering, what am I doing wrong? Okay, this lady is in pain, and she must be crying. Wow. So she speaks to her and says, what's wrong? Can I help you? And the lady says, don't stop. Don't stop.
I know.
Okay, and she says, but am I hurting you? No, I just haven't been touched in 10 years. Okay, so when you think about that, I think the advice that Yeshua gives us and also Paul gives us in Romans is good advice. Let's look at that 1 Corinthians 7 chapter.
Okay, before you go there, think about it. Boy, my mom.
Oh, I love to hug your mother. she is just such. Yeah, you can just. She's
a little fireplace. She's that what is it? Kind of Czechoslovakian Bohemian background.
Yeah.
So she gives what she calls
Baba. She gives a hug.
When her husband passed, my stepfather. Now, when she comes up to visit or we visit her, because we live a short distance away, where it takes a little time. It's that hug. And it's not just a, hi, Mom. She holds on. She goes, oh, I miss that. You can feel it in her body, her demeanor. Oh, I miss that. Now, compare that to preemies, little babies that are born that aren't touched.
Right.
If they're touched, I don't know what the statistic is, but they survive better than if they aren't touched. Human touch.
That makes total sense.
So what I'm getting from you guys is that not only are we supposed to grieve and weep if we find ourselves widowed, we're supposed to look to Yahweh as our strength, that He will be our judge.
Amen.
And we need to step out and maybe start hugging. Even if the church doesn't hug us, we should maybe hug it.
Well, if is
that what you're saying?
In a tactful manner. In a tactful manner.
You got to be respectful and ask.
Yeah,
right?
You do. I mean,
some people are not touchy feelings.
Do you need a hug? Well, yeah, I could use a hug. I think we just got to be careful because we're all wired a little different, aren't we? And that's the way the Father made us. So
I like that
thing. Yeah.
So the hug thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. We had the hug thing. We have that it's okay to get married. We can substantiate that again through 1 Corinthians 7. So we need to do that. But let's try.
Wait a minute. So you go there. I'm a little confused because I look at this. It says 1 Corinthians 7:1. And concerning the matters you wrote to me, it's good for a man not to touch a woman. Wait a minute. Well, I shouldn't be involved with a woman. Paul, I'm a little confused here.
Yeah.
So two.
That's one of those difficult ones.
Yep. But because of whoring, or what would be another word in like the King James?
Lack of immorality or just passion or burning.
Yeah, if you're not doing it out of passion or lust, if you're just hugging a holy hug, I don't know.
No, this is, he's addressing, if you got some passion going on and you want to be intimate.
Yeah. So that's why he says, hey, let each one have his own wife and let each woman have her own husband because of that issue.
Exactly.
So
but you brought up the other part of this.
Right.
Go ahead.
Maybe if you're widowed, you don't have to have another husband or wife. You can be married to someone else. There's another example of this.
Is there an example of this?
Yes.
Really?
It's found in Luke 2. Let's go to Luke 2. So there are some options here for those of you that are doing.
Where in Luke do you want to go?
Well, Luke 2 has to do with the little prophetess by the name of Anna, and that's in verse 36.
36. Okay.
And there was a prophetess, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived with a husband 7 years after her marriage, and then as a widow to the age of 84.
Wow. Oh, that's a long time.
Long time to be married. Yeah. I mean, unmarried. Yeah. So, and she never left the temple, serving night and day with fasting and prayers.
Wow.
So we can see who she was married to.
Yeah, Messiah.
Like Paul.
Messiah.
Paul was married to the Messiah. Anna was married. So I'm seeing different ways to look at things from a widow perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to get married, marry.
Yeah.
If you need to hug,
Or even if you don't need to but want to get married. No, I need to be married because I can't cook for myself. That's a different situation.
Maybe wrong.
Get out a cookbook, look at the cooking channel.
Yeah. Yeah, but you also might want to be just married to the Messiah. Maybe this is your time in life to actually be into the ministry that you've always dreamed of wanting to be into.
Like you can pray. You don't have anybody else and you can be you and the Messiah and whatever, We're all so unique, aren't we?
Yes.
We really are, in a good way. We're all special.
Some more special than others.
Exactly.
Speaking of some special widows, we actually took a sample of 4 widows.
Yes.
Okay? And we're going to see what they had to say.
Okay.
Are you in with me?
We're ready.
All right.
Okay. So this man was named Bill.
But he's not a widower, is he? He's never been
he's
married.
just been
He's
single.
alone in the nest.
He has
alone in the nest.
He has a gift of singleness, Brother Bill.
I've come to realize that I'm not single because God causes me to rely on Him. God delivers me. He gives me special assignments. I look forward to rejoicing with Him in the Mizpokah on all the feasts and all the Shabbats. I believe in God's timing to provide me with a wife. In fact, I look forward to it. So that's Bill's statement.
So Bill's
hopeful.
He's still looking for a wife.
But he's letting God be in control.
But he's allowing the Father to guide his steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Here's from a woman's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is from Donna.
Donna?
Okay.
She wants to keep things in balance. Isn't quite sure how to do that.
Sure.
Because there's car and there's finances and there's yard and there's things to fix. Okay.
Now, just context, she's a widow.
Yes.
She's a widow.
She's a widow in her 80s.
Can you hear what she said? Things to fix.
Things to fix.
Wow.
Okay, now it's her relationships. My relationships help to keep things in balance.
Yeah. So
I have to rely on Yahweh.
Amen.
So the things that concerns her the most is those chores, the duties.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But she has to
The
rely on her
things her
relationships.
husband used to do
Mhm.
that now she is not able to do. She doesn't have either the know-how, and that's when the men can come along. But she needs to. You widows need to let the men know what you need.
So would you say Donna lets you know?
Donna has a hard time letting us.
She has a hard time, but she does do it. She's gotten better and better.
She's getting better at it. But
Okay.
the key is she has to let the family, the Mishpokah, know what your needs. Because, we try to be mind readers. We're still working on it.
This is important. I don't know if very many of you read the book of Acts.
Oh,
Okay.
Acts.
But you find that the whole concept of having deacons in a church was for the specific reason of meeting the needs
To
of
do the
widows.
works.
To do the words. Let's read it to someone else. This is
Okay.
from another man. His name is Tuck.
Tuck.
Okay. And what's his situation?
He's a divorcee.
Okay.
So another way of being separate.
Yes.
Alone in the nest.
Yes.
All right.
Alone in the nest.
There's a lot of those.
I got married at 44. At 44, I like who I am because I like how I think. So he's embracing, rather than feeling sorry,
Yeah.
he's starting to embrace. I learned to rely on Yahweh and what he brings to my mind. Yah helps me discern, or God helps me to discern. It's also up to me on how I respond to my community. Notice what he says here.
Yeah. What can I give?
What can I give? Most of us get set in our ways that we stop doing things. I want to practice doing and do something new. I want to rely on him.
Wow.
So
That's
again,
powerful.
if I'm a widow, rather than feeling sorry,
Just withdrawing, but he goes and he says, "What can I do, Father,
that heals.
to be your hands and feet?" So
I got one more.
that's good.
It's from Eunice.
We need to hear it.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, Eunice's situation.
She is living alone without her husband. She'd been married many, many years, and then he died recently.
Yes.
Being lonely, living without my husband, and coming to a place where I finally believe that I want to have a mate. Now she's on the other spectrum.
Yeah. Now she's
She thought she was going to be alone. Now she realized she wants another mate. And then having the patience to let God bring that mate to me. Every day I thank Yahweh to praise him and serve him. When I serve him, I'm not alone. I'm also learning to rest and wait. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a process, isn't it? To learning to trust him, to learning to rest, learning to wait on him. And just one step, one day
step at a time. Sweet Jesus. You have something going on in your mind.
Yes, you do.
I'm just kind of, machinating, chewing on this whole thing, thinking, wow, there are a lot of different aspects that we really need to cover, I think.
We do.
We've got finances, we've got the emotional aspect, the touchy subject of physical needs, sexuality. That's a pretty big deal.
It seems like it's even a bigger thing for the men sometimes, is because they're more, most of the time, not always, there's always differences, but most of the time the men are the more, especially, are just more touch oriented. I don't know. Maybe I
think you're right, and that maybe that's found out in the statistic that men get remarried quicker than women do. Just saying, maybe that's part of it.
So, Gus, I think you're telling us that maybe we should have some more episodes on this thing and maybe talk about sexuality and finances,
I think we need
and how the home changes after we've become an empty nester.
Exactly. I think what we'll do is let Yahweh lead us as to how many parts of this episode there will be on Alone in the Nest here on TorahFamily.org. From the Three Wise Guys, Shalom.